what is the language of physics? Okay, and lately, we've been looking at the Universal movie, okay, which is this thing here. It's a tool, okay, and we're saying that all these words, the ones that are static concepts, belong in a single frame of the Universal movie. Whereas any of the bottom ones there, those are dynamic concepts. Why we call them dynamic? Because they take up at least two frames in a universal movie. You need at least two locations to talk about motion, position, the position of mathematical physics, by the way. Ether, field, energy, any of those are all dynamic concepts. Okay, and so we've been talking about some of these words. And there are several more that we covered in the last few weeks. Okay, so that's where we stand. That's physics. Okay, because we're defining our terms. We're saying whether it's a static concept or a dynamic one, and we're justifying it. The mathematicians are saying, Bill, you're wasting your time. Okay, why am I wasting my time? Okay, let's find out. Okay, you're wasting your time because this is the language of physics, mathematics. Okay, and here you have one site and says mathematics has a vital role to play as the language of physics. As such, the part it plays must be subservient to the physics. And these are not the only people who say it. Here's just in case, a little more volume there to help them out. Okay, this is another site, Nut. Okay, that says with the concept of differentiation, integration, and differential equations, any theory could be explained. Theory can be explained with an equation. I'd like to see them do that. I mean, I don't know what they're talking about, but you cannot explain with an equation anything. I cannot explain, why this pencil falls, the cause, right, with an equation. I can tell you how fast it goes or that sort of thing. It's not going to tell me what caused it. And that's what an explanation is. But these people don't understand that, okay? All the laws governing the nature could be expressed based on mathematical equations. Yeah, laws maybe, whatever that is in mathematical physics, right? Over there they can talk about laws. There are no laws in physics. In physics, all we have are explanations, okay? Hence, mathematics can be regarded as the language of physics. So these people believe that mathematics is the language of physics as well. Okay, and just in case we have one more. Okay, here it is. It says mathematics as structural language of physics, of physical thought, and it's a paper this fellow wrote from Brazil. Okay, mathematics is definitely lodged in the core of physics, hence becoming evident when encountering the products of its scientific activities. Okay. And it says mathematics enters the physical discourse by means of functions, equations, graphics, vectors, tensors, etc., etc. And I don't know how he justified that. He's just saying it does. Okay. I guess he just memorized this in high school or college and just spitting it out, like poetry. Owing to the important role of mathematics has played in the organization of physical theories, some authors view its adoption as a criterion of rationality and not merely as indicative of conventionality or empiricism. So all these folks, they've been educated or brainwashed or whatever you want to call it, to believe that mathematics is the language of physics. And I'm saying that, my language of physics is a little different than theirs because it doesn't involve any equations. And so you say, well, where did they get that idea? Okay, and here's probably the source, okay, a fellow named Galileo in the 17th century. And he wrote in his book, Dialogue Concerning Two New Sciences, 1638, a couple of years, 4 years before he died. And Galileo says the following, he says, philosophy, meaning philosophy of nature, right, is written in that great book whichever is before our eyes, I mean the universe. But we cannot understand it if we do not first learn the language and grasp the symbols in which it is written. Aha. Yeah, which one is that? The book is written in mathematical language, and the symbols are triangles, etc., right? Without whose help it is impossible to comprehend a single word of it, without which one wanders in vain through a dark labyrinth. Mathematics is the language in which God has written the universe. And believe me, if I were again beginning my studies, I would follow the advice of Plato and start with mathematics. So this is probably the source, or at least one of the sources. The other one could be Descartes, Rene Descartes. All these people, they thought, just like Plato and Aristotle and Euclid, all these other folks from the days of the Greeks, they really thought mathematics was a synonym of physics. Okay, because they said this is the language in which we represent. And what are they representing? They're representing descriptions. They're not representing explanations. Okay, there's a difference between a description and explanation, and that's what they never figured out, that if physics is explanation, it's got nothing to do with math, which is only description. Okay, so there's a difference between those. Okay, and so we look up definition of physics. What is physics? What do people think physics is? And just in case, I'm going to point to official sites, okay? Because otherwise people say, oh, you got that from the layman out there. He doesn't know. Okay, so let's get official sites. Here's a couple of physicists from Quora. One says, physics is certainly tries to explain how the universe works. Explain, okay? Physics is the science which tries to understand nature, why and how, okay? So, physics is, an explanatory science, a discipline. It had better be, because that's what physics is. That's what people want to know. Like if you go to Quora or you go to the Stack Exchange, another site, and you go to Hyperphysics, some of these places, they'll all try to, the questions people ask them are always the same. Another one, how stuff works. People want to know about physics. And what do you mean by that? They don't want to have an equation. They want to say, how does this work? How does gravity work? That's what I want you to tell me, okay? How does magnetism work? What causes, right, this to attract that? Isn't that a question of physics, or is it a question of philosophy? No, this is a question of physics. People want to know, how this happens physically. Okay, so this is not a question of philosophy or any other discipline for that matter. No, these are questions of physics. They want an explanation of the mechanism. And once we understand that, we're done with physics, especially for all this invisible stuff that no one has been able to answer in mathematical physics. Okay, so what is an explanation? Well, explanation is a theory. That's what it is. That's a synonym. The word theory and explanation are synonyms. Theory is not a description, which is what mathematical physicists, mathematicians, they made those two words equal, and that's not true. They're not synonyms, okay? So theory, a system of ideas intended to, explain something. That's what Oxford Languages Dictionary says. Theory is a carefully thought out, explanation. That's from the Field Museum. Theory, generalized explanations of how nature works. Okay, that's what a theory is, especially a theory of physics. That's out of Wikipedia. Theory, a plausible or scientifically acceptable general principle or body of principles offered to explain phenomena. And a final one, Cambridge Dictionary, theory, a formal statement of ideas that are suggested to explain la 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 la. Okay, that's what it is. Explanation and theory are synonyms. Okay, a theory is not a description. Math can only describe, therefore mathematics has no theories whatsoever. That's why they talk about laws, whatever those are, and then they kind of bunch it in there with theories and say, we have a theory of general relativity. Well, the theory of general relativity is not the equation. That's just a description. The theory of general relativity is warp space. What do they call it? Geometry? Geometry of space-time. That's different than saying this is the equation. The equation is just a description. All that an equation does is describe. Okay, so here we have that these people are speaking in tongues. Okay, someone says, what causes the pen to fall to the floor? Einstein, right? And a smart fellow there, the Einstein guy, Disipo, he says the acceleration of gravity, which is 9.8 meters per second square. Yeah, he gives them a mathematical answer. That's not the question that was asked. But they say that this is what a theory is. At least the mathematicians believe that this is the notion of what they call theory. No, no way. Theory is explanation. Okay? An explanation is not a description, which is the only thing that math can do. Okay, so here we have a couple official sites. Okay, and we're going to look at the words that they use. Okay, the language, the vocabulary, okay, that these people use. And here's one, Palm Beach State College. Okay, and you see all these words, and what you won't find in there is words of physics. What you find is words of mathematics. All these words are mathematics, and you say, well, I can't go through all that. Let's simplify this so that you can see it real easily. We'll take all the definitions out of there. We'll just leave the words. Okay, so there you see all the words. Okay, and see, all those have to do with mathematics. Has nothing at all to do with physics, with causes and with mechanisms. Okay, it turns out that if you look up the definitions of all these words, half of them at least, okay, here's half of them, they have the word object in the definition. Okay, so all these words have the word object, and nowhere do you have the word object defined. So this is what's so strange here. These people are saying that you need the word object to define all these words of mathematics. And not one of them, not one word in there is the word object. Not one defines the word object, or the word exists for that matter. Physics is the science of existence, okay? And they don't define the word exist either. So neither object or exist is on that list. Here you have another site, a famous one, Hyperphysics. And if you go to the right side of that website, you'll find all the words. And they have tons of words there. Not one of them is a word of physics. Not one of them includes, that list does not include the word object or the word exist. So how can you do physics without an object is the question. And why haven't defined them? If you go to high school or college, and you don't have to take physics per se, like, high level. I mean, just an introductory course. You buy any textbook of physics out there, and just open it up and look at the vocabulary or the glossary or whatever. You will not find the word object ever defined. No mathematician in the last 10,000 years has defined the word object. It turns out you can't do physics without objects. I mean, how are you going to explain a phenomenon, a mechanism, what caused something to happen, if you haven't defined the word object? You don't know what an object is. And so this is interesting that this crucial word has never been defined by so-called physicists, mathematical physicists. Why? Because they do math. They don't do physics at all. And here's another site, just in case, okay, Quintessential Instructional Archive. And again, when you look in there, you find all these words of mathematics, and you don't find a single word of physics. Now, you won't find the word object or the word exist. What you'll find is words which are irrational, such as energy and mass. Okay, I mean, mass is not irrational if you just say quantity of matter, but they also say that mass is inertia or measure of inertia or whatever, and that's when they screw it up completely. No, inertia has to do with weight, not with quantity of matter. Quantity of matter is you don't measure, you count. And inertia, you measure. And weight, you measure. Okay, so yeah, inertia is a different one. Is like the counterpart, like I said the other day, of weight. Okay, so here we have, because of that, you have sites like NASA, and they don't use the word gravity. They don't define the word gravity. You say, what is gravity? Because that's what they're trying to explain here. They say, no, we're going to tell you what gravity is. Okay, what is gravity? It says anything that has mass also has gravity. But you haven't told me what gravity is. What do you mean it has gravity? Like, I have 10 cents in my pocket, like that, it has gravity. Objects with more mass have more gravity. Okay, so they never tell you what gravity is, and then they have this ridiculous, little ball going around, the center of mass, right? And Earth's gravity comes from all its mass. And again, they just tell you where it comes from. They never tell you what gravity is. And these are the words that people want to have answers to. They want to have a definition on the one hand, and they would like a mechanism. They would like to have an explanation, a physical interpretation. They never get it. Okay, so where does this take us? Well, all I can do is give you the rational version, the scientific version, okay? And that's what we contrast against this mathematical language, this irrational language called mathematical physics. You know, math is math, physics is physics, never the twain shall meet. Math can only describe, physics is about explanations, about theories, right? Mechanisms, causes, and you cannot explain with equations, with numbers, with formulas, which is what math is about. So math and physics never will meet. And the first religion, really, to try to merge them was geometry. You know, because geometry has, on the one hand, the triangle, which belongs to physics because it's an object. It's a thing. Okay? Why is it a thing? Because it has shape. That's the definition. And then they go in there and they say, let me tell you about angles. And they're not talking about just the qualitative angles, like, you know, this is perpendicular to that. No, they're talking about how much, how many degrees. Okay, inside, you know, for example, a triangle, the inside angles of a triangle sum to 180 degrees. Okay, that sort of thing. So they're concerned about numbers. And so they try to merge quantities with quality. And that's why they forgot about giving qualitative explanations to phenomena. Okay? And yeah, we say, look, for physics, you need a different kind of language. And it's a language that the mathematicians never defined. Okay? So here we have physics, causes and mechanisms. That's what physics is. Explanations. Okay? Explanation of a mechanism requires objects. You know, you cannot explain a mechanism, cause, right? Unless you have an object. You have to identify the object. And if it's an invisible object, you still have to identify it. You know, for example, air. Air is invisible. It's not an object. It's not a thing. Is it a concept? No, air is a physical object. Sorry. Okay? Air is what blew your house down. Fast air. Okay, fast moving air. But air is the object, the thing. Okay, that was in motion. Okay? So you need objects. Otherwise, you can't explain any mechanism. And what people want to understand in physics is mechanisms. Okay? The language of physics is not mathematics. Okay? Mathematics. It's what? Illustration. You need to illustrate. Yeah, if you're going to just give me the illustration and I'll understand the mechanism. You can explain a little bit there if you need to, no problem. But physics is illustration. You need to illustrate. You know, because you have objects, you had better be able to illustrate in physics, okay? And all these people, they just want to talk about numbers. That's not an illustration. That's just a concept that describes it, you know, in the abstract mode. Okay? An equation cannot tell you what physical object is doing the acting. It plays the central role in your theory, okay? So equation is worthless in that sense. And so, yeah, we end up with this. We end up with the foundations of physics, the key words that you absolutely need to define in order to do physics. What is physics? Explanations, physical interpretations, causes, right? Mechanisms. That's what you need. Physics requires an object. So you absolutely need to define the word object. You can't do physics without an object. That's the first rule, what I call the golden principle of physics. Okay? And there you have what I call the foundations of physics, which are the words that you need to define the vocabulary that you absolutely need to do physics. You cannot do physical interpretations, physics, without these words. You absolutely need to define these words. Okay, you cannot escape that. And it's, what is something? Well, it's that which has shape. And then you have a bunch of synonyms. What is nothing? It's an antonym of something, right? The opposite. And what is that? That which doesn't have shape. And there you have some synonyms. Okay, space. So an object and space are antonyms. Then you have to have distance. You have to show distance between any two objects. Why? Because you're going to talk about location, which is the set of distances from one object to all the others in the universe or in your system, whatever system you're explaining. Exist. It's an object that has location, meaning distance with respect to all other objects, right? God wants to be part of that. He better have distance with respect to all the other objects. And since under our proposal, there's a single thread, God had better be part of the single thread. Otherwise, we're not in touch with him and he's not in touch with us. He's working action at a distance, and that's black magic. And you say, well, God can do that. Yeah, he can, but I can't. So if God wants to communicate with me, God had better do something better than black magic. Okay, He may be all powerful. I'm not. Okay, that's one issue. The other one issue is that God has to touch me in some way. And you say, well, no, He does. He can penetrate your brain and talk to you in your brain without touching you or without entering your head or whatever. Well, again, if it's inside my brain, it's going to change the atoms in there, the way I think, etc. He's got to do some touching. There's no way he can avoid that. He may work without touch. I can't. I need to work through touch. Okay, so if he wants to change my mind, he's got to touch something in my head. Okay, so keep that in mind. God can be all powerful all he wants, but he's got to be part of our universe. I mean, if he wants to be part of our universe, if he wants to exist, right, at least for us, he's got to be part of the thread, the single thread. Okay? He's got to be made out of atoms, and every one of his atoms has to be connected to all other atoms. Otherwise, he's got black magic. One issue, and the other one is that if God comes down to earth, he should be able to explain to you how he communicates or how he made something out of nothing. He can explain all that, and you should be able to understand the mechanism. Why not? I mean, he can talk about anything. He can talk to you about the 26th dimension if he wants. You say, well, I don't understand all that. Yeah, you'll understand what he's trying to tell you. Okay? You'll get the overall picture. So if God wants to tell you that he made something out of nothing, you should be able to understand it. Okay? He should be able to explain it. Besides, he's all powerful. He should know a way that he can explain it to you in such a way that you would understand it. Motion, two or more locations of an object. And what is a concept? Well, it's a word that invokes or embodies two objects or two words which are momentarily treated as objects. Okay? And with that, I'll see you next week. We'll see you then.